melt is when I'm ocean waves.
Today on Nova Legends podcast, I have George Mason coach Kim English, a guy who's one of the hottest young coaches in the country. We're so excited that he's here in Northern Virginia. Coach, nice to meet you. Thanks for doing this.
Oh, nice to meet you. Appreciate you having me.
Oh, of course. Well, just to get a broad sketches of your career, your young career, actually. You're from the Baltimore suburban area. Went to Randallstown High School. Ended up prepping a year at Notre Dame Academy. Played at Missouri. Won 2 Big Ten titles there, MVP of the Big 12, drafted by the Pistons, a European career that included jobs in Italy, France, and even Venezuela, which is interesting. Assistant coach for Tulsa for your former coach, Frank Haith. Colorado, you worked for Tad Boyle. And then at Tennessee for George Mason legend Rick Barnes, the guy that I grew up behind University Shopping Center. I'd walk over to the PE building and watch Rick Barnes and Joe Harrington and Carlos Yates and all those great players do their thing back in the early 80s. So, and then this is your second year at George Mason, and definitely turning things around. Did I get the broad strokes right there, Coach?
Yeah, no doubt. It was a trip down memory lane for sure.
Well, maybe we can continue that. Well, first of all, Coach, you're from Randallstown High School, which is suburban Baltimore. Is the basketball culture in Baltimore, the suburbs, city, private, is it the same as DC? Is it one big area now, or is Baltimore has its own distinct basketball culture?
Yeah, Baltimore. It's Baltimore. I'm from Baltimore City. I was raised in West Baltimore. Moved to Randallstown when I was about 13, 14. I went to private schools in Baltimore. I went to Tulsa Catholic high school. I finished at Randallstown, and yeah, it is. It's all one big family.
Yeah. When you look back on your high school career, have things changed a lot for high school players now? Like in just those 10, 15, 18 years, is it much different, the development arc for young players now than it was when you played?
Yeah, it is a lot different. I feel like it used to be a little bit more organic. You played, on local AAU teams where you were from, and from your neighborhood. In Baltimore, especially, I played for a rec center in West Baltimore called Mount Royal. And then I played for a rec center in East Baltimore called Cecil Kirk. And there was Madison, and there was Bentlow, and there was Chickwed. And those rec centers were AAU programs, with no affiliation to sneaker companies. It was just your neighborhood that you grew up playing with and around. With the advent of the sneaker influence on AAU basketball, it's changed a lot. So now it's it's Team Mellow, it's Team Thrill, it's Team Takeover, it's DC Premier, it's a little bit more nuanced. They can go and grab players from Pennsylvania or Southern Virginia or wherever and formulate the team. It's good in a way, but it is absolutely different.
What are the downsides? I mean, are kids getting left behind that, for example, let's say I don't want to transfer high schools and maybe those teams put pressure on you to be at a certain high school. Are there some downsides in the way AAU is structured now as compared to when you played?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I can't speak to many downsides. It's still a really good product. Kids are getting opportunities, to earn scholarships to play Division I basketball. I think they're being coached really well, especially in this area. I think the coaches, AAU high school, do an incredible job teaching guys how to play the right way and make our jobs easier when we get them. I can't think of many downsides, but it's definitely different than it was 15, 18 years ago when I was coming up.
Are these decisions that parents make, are they crucial to the development? I mean, is the cream going to rise to the top no matter what AAU team you choose, no matter what high school you choose? Or are these decisions really important for how the player is going to develop and what exposure the player gets?
I think every situation is different. I think some kids can just, they'll their talent will outshine the rest or outperform the opposition or opponents. But I do think some kids benefit from being in a different situation where development, or opportunity to play on a team is there. So I think it's unique to every individual.
Yeah, it's something that I was a parent of a soccer player, and I always felt like these decisions that you make were so important, and you'd only go through it one time or maybe a couple times, and it's hard to get advice because things may have changed just in 5 or 10 years. So you're trying to keep up, and it's very difficult. How about in high school? Who are some of your important coaches, your role models that you learn from, and maybe even you still do things in your coaching today that's reminiscent of what they taught you?
Yeah, Daryl Corbett was really one of my first basketball coaches, Mount Royal Rec Center in West Baltimore. He's one of the most influential coaches I've ever had. Anthony Lewis, Cecil Kirk, same token. Those two guys had a really big influence on me. I went to Mont Bird Academy in Florida for a year, and I played for Kevin Sutton.
Oh, you did? Yeah.
Yeah, and he was a really good coach, really good developer of young men and talent, and learned a lot from him in his program. So from the high school level, I'd say that those 3 coaches probably the biggest influence. So.
Yeah, so when I was playing in high school, I went to Robinson, right near George Mason, class of '84, and Tommy Amaker and Kevin Sutton, Bobby Dodson, Butch Dobson, they're all cousins. There's all these Amaker-like players around. They all played the same. They all had similar games. Really tough point guards. I had to try to go up against these guys. It was never good news for me.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, it was funny. So, well, anyway, you ended up going to Notre Dame Academy as well, and you took a prep year. How important is that to development? And my guess is now it's even becoming more important because when players get to college, they're playing against much older kids. So I was looking at some of the George Mason players, the guys that are getting most of the minutes this year. You got a couple grad students, seniors, a very experienced bunch of players that are getting the playing time. So my guess is, getting that prep year is probably good for development, give you a chance to get a little bit older and stronger.
Yeah. I went to Notre Dame prep school in New England. It was really important for me. That crucial year. I mean, I went from 18 to 19. And I just spent a lot of time in the gym, and it's where my work ethic really was honed. It was the first time I got a chance to live right next to a gym like I would in college. So I built the habits of every morning in the gym, every night in the gym because of the accessibility. So it really helped me when I got to college, just to have that habit, have that routine of being in the gym a lot. And work ethic really separates you in college and in professional basketball. Like, your talent gets you to the level you're at. Your competitiveness will get you on the court. But I really believe that your work ethic is the separator between, good and great at this level and above. And prep school taught me that. And it did give me a leg up when I got to college.
Well, also, I would think these schools like Hargrave, Oak Hill, New Hampton Prep, Massanutten, whatever, they're in places where there's less distractions as well for a kid from Baltimore, where there's a lot more social opportunities there. And you probably really had to focus in some degree on your basketball because there probably wasn't quite as many options for you.
Yeah, it wasn't much else. My roommate's brother actually did play for the Celtics, so we got to go to quite a bit of Celtics games that season. But yeah, there's not much in Fitchburg, Massachusetts, outside of our basketball gym. So I got to really lock in and focus on that.
Yeah. So why'd you decide to go to University of Missouri?
It was really simple. I wanted to go to a place that hadn't experienced much recent success. And I wanted to be a part of, the reason that place found success. And it was down to Cincinnati, Miami, Tennessee. I chose Missouri, and it was awesome. great facilities, which was important to me because spending time in the gym was really important to my development. And had an opportunity to go there, improve, work hard, play, and we won quite a lot of games in 4 years.
Yeah. Well, when you choose a college back in those days, and it's only what 10, 15 years ago, you were choosing a college for 4 years. You're choosing it. You're going to develop. You had goals to do those things. Nowadays, the way it works, like I went to the ODU George Mason game last year, and there was several kids on both rosters that had been to three schools. The way it is now with the transfer portal and stuff, there's no longer a huge expectation that you're necessarily going to be at the same place for 4 years. When you look back on that, do you think it was better back then when the way the economics and the way the structure of college sports was, there was more of a commitment or an assumption you're going to be there 4 years. You have a junior college player or two, maybe a transfer come in or two, but your team was largely made of players that were there for 4 years. Do you think that's
I still think you can do that. I still recruit on the expectation that we're going to have a player for 4 years. That's our plan and their development. And I have good optimism that the retention of the players that we sign as high school players will continue to be good. Again, I don't want to get into which was better or not. I mean, people have the right. Players have the right and the freedom to do whatever they want to do. Other sports in college basketball have had the ability to transfer without penalty, for quite some time. I know it was right for me to go through my process at Missouri for 4 years. Every single freshman that we sign, it's our plan, and it's a 4 or 5 year process for them. But we have to make adjustments to the rules that are given to us, and players are allowed to transfer without penalties. And you never know someone's story. They want to get closer to home. It didn't work out. Their coach got fired. Their new coach will, whatever it may be. So you need to acquire talent, and whichever way you can acquire that talent is good.
Does it change the kind of player that you have to recruit? Like, for example, say a kid has an immense amount of ability, but it's going to take a couple of years for him to get there. And you're afraid if you bring him in, he's going to help George Mason. But the first year, so he might be sitting on the bench and not play that much. And then you figure, well, then he might go into transfer portal anyway. And was it kind of a waste of time? So does it change the type of player that you try to recruit because you figured you may need someone who's going to experience success right away?
Yeah, no, we feel like we'd like an older player in a position. We target an older player, but as we're looking for players, we're looking for the best available players, no matter their classification or, junior college, international, high school transfer, whatever it may be. If we're honest with kids, so if it may take some time, we'll let them know this is what the process looks like. And again, nothing's guaranteed. We could think that, and a kid could come and blow it out of the water, and play big minutes right away. Or vice versa. We could see something in the kid, and when you get a closer look at him, you see the areas of the holes that need to be developed further. But if there's a level of trust first and foremost between the parties, there's a level of commitment to the individual and the institution and the program, then patience is a good thing.
Yeah. Do you enjoy the aspect of college coaching in today's game, and that you have to recruit from other colleges? The portal is an important part of the process. Do you enjoy that part that you can bring in assets that can help you right away? You're using some this year, some Tennessee guys, or does that make your game does it make it more complicated because you have to keep kind of recruiting to keep your own kids at George Mason?
Well, every team's different. Like I said, I'm not fearful of the portal. In our way of losing kids, retention is always the most important thing. So it puts the onus on us to make sure we're giving our players a really good college basketball experience, because they do have the freedom to leave. Every team's different, every team's different. Every situation is different. Our first 2 seasons, we decided to go with older guys because we wanted to, be competitive, right away. We wanted to have adequate talent right away, and we did that. But as we move forward, we're transitioning into, more homegrown, more high school kids, that we're signing players that have been in our program, developing, are ready to take the next step.
Yeah. Well, to get back to your college career briefly, you played for Mike Anderson at first, I believe, in Missouri. What was his style like, and what did you learn from Coach Anderson?
Yeah, Coach Anderson, he's a clone of Nolan Richardson. We played the old Arkansas 40 minutes of hell, pressure defense, 40 minutes, trying to get steals, fast tempo offense. And it was fun. It was fun. It taught you how to play the game efficiently at a fast pace. It forced you to be in incredible shape, conditioning wise. Learned a ton from Coach Anderson. Still watch him and root for him at St. John's.
Yeah. What about Coach Haith? So he came out, I believe, your third year. He joined Missouri.
My fourth year, my senior year.
Okay. Yeah. So what about Coach? What was his style, and what did you learn from Coach Haith? And you also obviously coached under him as well.
Yeah, he was a really good offensive coach. We were the number one offense in the country as it relates to offensive efficiency. Per Ken Palm, my senior year. It was a lot of space. It was 4 out, 1 in. It's one of the ways we play here. We played that way exclusively all last season with 4 guards. It's probably the way we're most comfortable playing. 4 out, 1 in, a lot of space, a lot of threes. One dominant big guy inside. He had a huge influence on the way we coach and play offensive basketball.
Right. What about as a player? Would Coach English enjoy coaching Kim English? What kind of player were you to coach? And have you thought about your relationship with coaches now that you are a coach yourself?
Yeah, no, I would have. Because one thing there was not a void of passion with me, and I really, really, really enjoy coaching guys that are self-motivated, are passionate. I have to turn down a little bit rather turn up. Really care, really want to have individual success, which drives their want to have team success. So yeah, I would have enjoyed coaching myself.
Yeah. Well, you were named MVP of the Big 12, and that must have been a long road to get there. It's lots of fantastic players and teams there. Now, what did that mean to you to be the MVP?
It honestly didn't mean much. It just meant that I played well at the right time of the year. We won the conference tournament championship. It really didn't mean anything to me. I honestly, going back in time, I wish one of my teammates probably would have got it. I just wanted our season to keep going. We ended up losing in the first round of the tournament that season. I played really, really well at the right time of the year.
Yeah. Well, so you end up getting drafted and going into the NBA for the Pistons, and then you had a European career. What do you tell young players about playing ball in Europe? You had a great experience. You went to some great countries. Some of the folks they go to Eastern Europe or maybe Middle East or something like that. But you played in Italy, France, some of the bigger markets. How do you advise kids about going to Europe, and what are the kind of expectations they should have?
As we're making those decisions, we're very honest and forthcoming and talk about the different opportunities in different countries. The top leagues, the Spanish ACB, France, the BBL, the Serie A, and Italy, the LNB in France, Turkish league, Israel, some of the winter leagues, some of the best leagues in the world, what they mean, the style of play, how basketball is there, what it's like to live there, what the pay is like, what your life is like, and just try to make the best decision for that kid. But at the end of the day, it's basketball, it's professional basketball. And over your time, over your tenure in college, hopefully you've developed the attributes and the habits that will help you have a sustainable professional career. Your timeliness, your communication skills, your dependability, how you operate as a teammate, how you defend, how efficient you are. Because the difference now is, a couple of bad games, it can be over. You can be cut, you can be terminated, you can be sent home. So it's educating the guys on the seriousness of playing professional basketball against other grown men that are trying to feed their families.
Yeah. Well, when did you decide you wanted to be a coach, and what was your journey to join Coach Haith at Tulsa?
Yeah, I've always known I wanted to coach. Well, when I was young in college, I knew I was going to get into coaching. I just thought it would be after a much longer career in the NBA. My time in the NBA was cut short after only one season. I wanted to get into coaching right then, but Coach Haith urged me to keep playing, and I did. But I was always, heckling him that I wanted to get my coaching career started, along with others, Shaka, Smart, Conzo Martin. I really wanted to break into the business, and really thankful for Coach Haith to give me my first opportunity at Tulsa.
Was it a transition when you were young? When you were still a young coach, but when you were a very young coach on the staff, and you're coaching kids that are 4 or 5 years younger than you, did you have to grow into that role as an assistant coach?
Yeah, not even. I mean, they were 2 and 3 years younger than me. I was 25. So they were very close to my age. It is a transition of being young, but having to have the authority and respect of a coach. So navigating that pathway is hard. It gets easier every year you get older. You're a little bit older. But it was an awesome experience.
Yeah. Well, then you ended up going out to University of Colorado and coaching under Tad Boyle. What was that experience like, and what did you learn from Coach Boyle?
It was great. It was great to get to a different part of the country, learn a new league, learn a new recruiting landscape, learn from a different coach. Tad can trace his basketball lineage back to James Naismith. He played for Larry Brown at Kansas, who played for Dean Smith, who played for Fog Allen, who played for Dr. James Naismith. So, Tad's a purist of the game. Very, very simple man, very good defensive coach. And learned a lot from Tad. I coached one of our guys from Colorado, Deshaun Schwartz, came with us to Mason from Colorado. Nate Thomason, one of our assistant coaches, was at Colorado. So Tad, we still talk often. He had a huge influence on me in my career.
So then you end up coaching in Tennessee under Rick Barnes, as I said earlier, another George Mason legend. What was it like coaching for Rick Barnes? He did an amazing job back in the early '80s. I interviewed Coach Harrington, a former George Mason coach, and others, and they all knew he was going to be a superstar, way back then. So what did you learn from Coach Barnes, and what was that experience like?
Yeah, he's a very smart basketball coach, very consistent, very tough. Again, a lot of what we did at Tennessee, we do here. We're trying to implement here, but it's the relentless devotion to the simple things that go into winning. And quite frankly, they take some time to develop, but you never relent. And he never relents. He will never relent on the things he knows that go into winning consistently.
Yeah. Of all the coaches that you work for and actually played for, was Coach Barnes the most different than the others? What coach was the most unique, and you learned very different things from this coach?
Yeah, I'm not sure I could say who the most different was. They were all very impactful, all really good program builders. Frank, what he built at Miami to Missouri to Tulsa, Tad, Northern Colorado to Colorado, Rick from George Mason to Providence to Clemson to Texas to Tennessee. All really, really successful program builders and probably more similar than different. Honestly, all of them.
Right. What about being an assistant coach? Is being a good assistant coach much different than being a good head coach? Is it a slightly different skill set?
Yeah, it is different. It is different. It is different. But you know, a good similarity is I feel like you know when I was an assistant coach, I felt like I was the head coach. Every day, I moved and I made decisions like it was my program. You know, as an assistant coach, I had kind of a leeway and a freedom to kind of move throughout the team different than a head coach can. You know, the relationships can be more intimate. You know, it can be so because you know I have less responsibility. As an assistant coach, I don't have to do interviews, or things like that, or meetings on campus, or
Or parents, dealing with parents.
so yeah, exactly. I could really throw myself into the team. And I felt an unreal connection to the guys. I felt a different connection to recruiting. Still recruit a lot as a head coach, but as an assistant, it's just a little different. So, yeah, you really lose yourself, and you feel like you make decisions as a head coach when you're assistant.
Of the coaches you work for, what are the ones that taught you the most about recruiting? Impressing the kid, selling the school on the kid, and all the things that go into getting these great players at George Mason.
Yeah, again, all different. Frank, I learned how important relationships are, long-lasting relationships, and the power that those relationships can have in recruiting. With Tad, his unbelievable belief that Colorado is the best job in the country. He really does believe it. I mean, if a kid chose Duke, Kentucky, or UCLA over Colorado, Tad would look at the kid like he's crazy. He really believes that Colorado is the best job in America. And, and from Rick, just how natural he is. You do feel a part of, his family, when he's on and when we're together.
Yeah, I don't know if you ever heard this story, but when Carlos Yates was one of he was the biggest recruit George Mason ever had at the time. They never had a player that level. He could have gone anywhere he wanted to. So Rick Barnes, there was a trophy case somewhere in the old PE building, and so he put Carlos Yates's picture in his jersey, like he'd already played at George Mason, won all these awards. So when Carlos Yates saw this, I mean, he was sold, and that was the reason why he chose George Mason over Maryland, and I mean he could have gone anywhere, and he went because of Coach Barnes. He went to George Mason. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a great story. So how did you end up getting the job at George Mason, and what was kind of your decision making process?
Yeah, well, I mean, we were in the NCAA tournament 2021. It was a bubble. We were all in Indianapolis. I was involved with another job, and Mason came open, and connection was made, and through talking to then athletic director Brad Edwards, president Greg Washington, Coach Barnes asked me, he said, if you could choose, between this job or this job, where would you, rather have? And the other job was a Power 5 job. He said, all things considered, where would you? And I said, I actually think George Mason. And he was like, that's where you should probably go. And and it worked out. Someone else got the other job, and I got George Mason, and it worked out great. And really excited about what we're building here. Even through rough patches we go through in the season, injuries, losses, whatever. I feel really good about the commitment and what we're building here.
So I interviewed Oliver Purnell, former coach of Clemson, DePaul, other places. And one thing he told me about Clemson is it was a difficult place for him to recruit basketball players, ACC level players, because the kids didn't want to really be in the country. And that was a challenge that he had to overcome. Now, George Mason is unique because it's in a huge sprawling suburb, a suburb that I love, Fairfax. And like I said, that's where I grew up. What are some of the exciting parts about selling recruits on Fairfax County and in a vibrant, growing school like George Mason?
Yeah, it's cool. We I live, in Roslyn. I live just outside of DC. I feel like we are in DC. When we have recruits on campus, we're having dinner in the city. We're doing things in the city. We're doing things in DC. But what's cool about it is for the kid that doesn't want to be in the city, we aren't. We're in Fairfax. We're 12 miles outside of the city. We have an actual campus with grass and lawns and an intimate community, old town Fairfax, old city Fairfax, and Fairfax Corner, and it's the only college basketball program in Northern Virginia. In this area. James Madison is west, and Richmond and VCU is south. But if you're talking Northern Virginia, we are the only Division I college basketball program here. So it's an incredible opportunity. And I think it's just in the perfect location. And I think if you see how far George Mason has come in 50 years, like, I mean, the next 15 could be seismic. And, to these young players right now, to be a part of that rebuild, what George Mason did in 2006 under Coach Larinaga, the hunt, in a different league now, a better conference now, to try to get back to that type of respect nationally is very exciting.
What are your thoughts on the Atlantic 12? You mentioned the league. It seems like every night is a dogfight there. I mean, it's very even. The records are very well spread out. Even teams like Dayton that were top 20 before the season, they've been in every game has been tough for them. So what do you think about the Atlantic 12?
Yeah, the Atlantic 10. The Atlantic
I'm
10
sorry.
it's Atlantic 10, but it's 15 teams, so I get it. No, it's tough. It's a great league. It's a really good league. And I think it's truly this season, I think it's indicative of college basketball. Very few teams, the margins are like this all over college basketball, no different than the Atlantic 10. VCU has separated themselves, this season in our league, but every single game, every game on the road is tough. And even if some of the better teams, if they're going through injuries, anything can happen. But it's a very good league. I love it that it's a basketball league. Very good coaches and programs that have all been to the Final Four virtually. I mean, Keith Dambrot just got his 500th win. Fran Dunphy he's a Hall of Famer. Archie Miller back in the league from his great success at Dayton. Anthony Grant's tremendous. Mike Rhodes is just the next coach on the long list of VCU coaches that have all had success dating back to Jeff Capel. So it's a really good league.
Yeah, and the coaches, you guys are a fraternity. You guys get along. I mean, obviously, you guys are all competitors. But so far, it's been nice meeting the other guys.
Yeah, no, everyone's been great. Everyone's been great. I mean, Mark Schmidt recruited me at St. Bonaventure. I played against Frank Martin. I played against Chris Mooney. I played against Travis Ford. So I've known these guys for quite some time.
Yeah. How about football? George Mason does not have football. Every other school you've been at had a big football program in a big league. I always thought it made George Mason's basketball team stand out. I mean, it is the premier team of the university and obviously Fairfax County. But what is it like? Do you prefer coaching without football on campus?
Yeah, it's been fine. I was worried about recruiting in the fall visits. With no football, I was worried. I didn't know what we would do. I've never been in a place without football, but I've actually learned to love it. Because college basketball players aren't going to a school for football. Normally during Saturday visits, we're tailgating, we'll go into a football game for like a half, and then we'll go to the hotel and sleep because we're exhausted from being in the sun all day. But now our guys get in the gym on Saturdays. Saturday mornings, our guys will play pickup, and our recruits will join them and play pickup. So I've learned to like it, and again, it gives us time on Saturdays to enjoy the city. Like I said,
Well, coach, I talk to a lot of soccer coaches as well as basketball coaches. And one thing soccer coaches always talk about is culture. But basketball coaches don't talk about that as much, or we talk about it in a different way. How important is the culture, way that the kids get along, the players get along? I always thought with basketball, you don't have to love all your teammates, but you can still play great ball and you can still succeed. How important to you is the culture of your team that you have?
Oh, I think culture is probably the word coaches in basketball use most.
Oh,
Yeah, I think culture is everything. I think it's everything. I think the team that loves each other the most, team that plays for each other and plays hard for each other the most, plays with the most passion, those teams have the most success, and it's 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 a saying that culture will eat strategy for breakfast, and I believe it.
is it help the culture to have graduate students, especially people that you know a lot about when they come, and they can really help the young players? I mean, some of them are 5 years older than the young players, so they're almost like an assistant coach. That's got to kind of help your culture to some degree.
Yeah, everything's different. Everyone's different. Every team is different. Every situation is different. Sometimes it may help. Sometimes it may not help. You don't know, not knowing what the player's motive is. But I do definitely think it's important for the culture to have players that have grown old together.
Yeah.
And that's what you want to build. That's what coaches, that's what we want. That's what we're here to do. We're here to recruit players, that we first saw and identify and liked, get them, nurture them, build them, develop them, cultivate that camaraderie, that team, and then eventually see it through with them as seniors, holding up a championship trophy, competing in the NCAA tournament, graduating, going off to play professionally, have success, get married, see their kids be successful. That's kind of the flow that you'd like to have.
Well, coach, you had this wonderful viral moment when you were talking about players who kind of brag about offers on social media, and it's something I was away from basketball for many years because my kids played soccer. So for the last 15 years, I've been following that, and I got back into it with the social media stuff. And one thing that I had a hard time getting used to is all the not boasting, but every time you get an offer, it's on social media, it's on Twitter, it's on Facebook, not just the player, but the parents. And I kept wondering, if the player is good and he's got a great game, is this really necessary? But everyone I talk to say it is necessary. This is the way the game is played. You have to be desired. You have to be the person that everyone wants to ask to dance. So what do you think about that aspect?
I don't know. Again, everyone's different. I get off of social media in season. So, but I did receive a lot of text messages of that clip about the offer, and I've it's different. I was a college athlete. I mean, I was a high school athlete that was recruited, and when Bruce Pearl in Tennessee offered me a scholarship, when Mike Anderson, with Mick Cronin, and Frank Haith in Miami, I didn't have anywhere to post that they offered me a scholarship, right? But it didn't matter. They offered me the scholarship. I didn't have to let the world know. It's different now. I guess one kid did it. He liked it. And now not all kids, but most kids do it. And it is what it is. They do it. You don't have to do it, but they do it. And it's a part of it.
Well, you say they don't have to do it. If you're a great player, if you're a Victor Bailey or whatever, you don't have to tweet your highlights out. The coaches are going to find you, and you're going to get your opportunities. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I tell our guys, behave like pros. If you want to be a pro, behave like a pro. Right? I ask our guys, how many times do you see LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Stephen Curry, reposting their stat line? or they're good plays. They don't do it. Everyone sees it. We have an entire team at Mason. Their job is to kick out dope content about you, dope graphics, dope videos. Our SID, Mark LaFrance, they know every stat. Everyone in the country knows it. Knows that Josh Aduro led the Atlantic 10 in scoring last year, and he's met this benchmark. It's no different than when you make a three. When you make a three, everyone sees it. Ray Allen said it. One of the best shooters in history of the game. When I make a three, I never do the. He said everyone in the arena just seen me make a three. It just gets back to humility. And in an age where promoting yourself, likes, social media, retweets, followers, getting followers, clicks, views, it's just being pushed down the throat of our young people. It's so hard for them to behave any other way, because they're trained to behave that way. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who offered or didn't offer Damian Lillard, right? 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, all those years, all he was doing was head down. He got, no matter how many offers he had, he went to one place, right? The person with one offer and the person with 30 offers can go to one place, right? Damian Lillard went to his one place. He worked his butt off. I don't know what he was tweeting after games. I know what he was retweeting after game, but he did really, really well at Weber State. He got on radars. His teams won a lot. He was an all-conference player. He was a top 10 draft pick. He's a top 10 draft pick. Okay. From where? No one cares, right? If you get drafted and you went to Kentucky, if you get drafted and you went to Weber State, no, you're in the same league. He played, he locked in, he played, he locked in, he did good. He signed a $250 million contract. His family is set for generations. He's one of the top 75 players in the history of the game. And so what does that tweet matter in 15 years? Right? What does that retweet matter? It doesn't. So it's just, I don't know. I'm the grumpy old guy, I guess.
You're the old guy. Well, Coach, last question, and this has been great. When I talked to Jeff Jones, ODU coach, and some soccer coaches as well, Dave Nolan in Georgetown is the women's coach there. One thing they both said to me is they feel like they're both on the back nine, so to speak, and that the game, there's so many moving pieces to be a college coach now. And I think this is why Jay Wright may have retired pretty young too. It's almost like a player like yourself, maybe a former player, very recently former player like yourself, can kind of move with all these moving pieces almost easier. It's almost like it's becoming a young man's game coaching college basketball because of the way the game moves so quickly, the players move around so quickly. Do you ever feel like it's an advantage to be such a young coach?
Well, I don't know. I'm 0-2 against Jeff Jones. I do know that. So I don't know if it's a young. It hasn't been a young man game. 2 times we played Jeff Jones' Old Dominion team. But there absolutely is an understanding to what today's athletes are doing and how they live. And especially I think if you were born in the late 80s, you're at a benefit because we still know what a phone book and a phone booth was and is, but we also understand how to navigate the interface of Snapchat or Instagram or whatever. I know the latest trends in music or what's happening and what our guys are saying in the locker room. I can hear it and understand it. And, I recently went through there. I know what it's like to be where they want to go. But the game is the game. The game is the game. The development is the development. That stuff doesn't change.
Yeah. Well, again, coach, this has been great. I'll be at the game tomorrow, the Rhode Island game. Wish you best of luck. I know that you lost your last two, but all in all, the team's been playing great, and I know this is the time of year where you want to start building for the postseason. So I definitely appreciate you coming on, and thanks for all your hard work at George Mason.
I'm helpless when I'm ocean waves.